Hair-Do Uncut podcast.
On this week's episode, Suzanne Bell, owner of Hair-Do Salon, joins me again to talk about blonding services. We tackle types of services there are, how to care for them, and how to have the correct expectations. This episode is great for stylists and clients alike. Just search Hair-Do Uncut where podcasts are found. Yes! Thank you for adding Hair-Do Uncut to your repertoire of podcasts. I am Paulson J. Healy, recording in Mesa, Arizona at Hair-Do Salon, and I have the owner of Hair-Do Salon again with me, Suzanne Bell. Hello, Suzanne.
Hello, Paulson.
We are excited about this topic, and this is a topic that's not only super popular from a how many people are getting this done standpoint, but it is everywhere, and it is more complicated than most people think, and that is blonding. Mm-hmm. And so we are going to talk about in depth a little bit more. Now, many of you may know there is a video that we have. We have a blonding video. It's just short, kind of briefly explaining things, and that's going to be an extension. This podcast episode is going to be an extension of that video that Suzanne and I did on blonding.
It's a good video. Gotta check it out.
You can check it out on Facebook. It's on our YouTube as well. But let's jump right into it. What are services that would be considered lightening hair, Suzanne? And what are the most popular right now?
Oh, gosh. Okay, well, so many options, Paulson. So many options right now. You guys, it is a blonding bonanza right now. So much fun to be a hairstylist right now with stuff going on. One of the most tried and true is highlights. All right, highlights have been around forever. Classic highlights. We still do a ton of classic highlights. As far as what a highlight does, for people who are kind of confused as to what falls into what category, a highlight literally adds a high color, like a blonde color, into your natural color. It's very dimensional, keeps all the dark hair in your hair, so you get a lot of dimension. You get highs and you get lows. The way they're done is we literally take a section of hair, we put it in a foil, and the hair that's in the foil lightens, and the hair that's not in the foil doesn't.
Super complicated.
The one thing that's kind of cool about highlights is that you can kind of create any pattern you want. You can do fine highlights, you can do medium-sized highlights, thick highlights, chunky highlights. I see chunky highlights trying to make a comeback again. Kind of funny when I was around the first time they came in. The trick though with highlights. Okay, now here's
a trick.
There's a correct way to do highlights and there's an incorrect way to do highlights.
Ooh, teach us.
All right, when you put a highlight in someone's hair, so when you pick up a piece of hair and you make it blonde, and then the client comes back, what you want to do is you want to pick up the same pieces you made blonde last time and touch them up.
All right, at the root.
Touch them up at the root to the line of demarcation where the old highlight was.
You don't want to overlap.
You do not want to overlap that highlight.
And why is that?
Because you will create a weak spot in the hair. When you create a weak spot in the hair, you set that person up for some damage, even potential breakage.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, no, I know.
No bueno.
You also, when you're doing highlights, you don't want to keep grabbing new hairs. All right, so if you did a highlight last time and the client comes back, and this time you don't want to have to deal with the touch-up, so you grab all new hairs, well, now you've just taken away their dimension. You've started to create too much blonde, and you're not leaving any of their natural color in so that they have the dimension that highlights create.
Oh, okay. Now, does that leads me into the next one a little bit. Like, is that where baby lighting becomes an issue when they take those new ones, or is that just a different
baby lights? Baby lights have been around for a couple of years, and they're kind of huge right now. And a baby light is basically a really teeny tiny highlight.
Oh, okay.
So when you're doing highlights, you're picking up really small pieces of hair. They look amazing the first time you do them.
True. Yeah.
Yeah, they're beautiful. The thing with the baby light is you don't get a lot of dimension because you're putting so many little teeny tiny highlights in the hair that overall the whole hair just looks lighter. You don't have a lot of lows in there anymore.
Gotcha.
The problem with baby lights, though, that we're starting to see is you can't touch up a baby light. When that client comes back and they want their hair touched up, you can't pick out those pieces that you did.
Yeah.
Like, it's impossible. There's a bazillion little teeny tiny baby lights in that head. You cannot pick them all up. And so what happens is
what you just talked about.
You just randomly grab new baby lights and you overlap all the old ones.
Which causes
breakage.
Which is what you kind of talked about with the highlights, and you don't want to go over the line of demarcation because that weakens the spot. So if you're taking those baby lights, those little sections, and you're overlapping it with lightener, especially since it's a smaller, finer highlight, almost like you're causing a lot of breakage. So if you're always baby lighting,
you might be overlap it once and be okay, but you overlap it a third and a fourth and a fifth time. I mean, we see so much breakage now from baby lights.
Yep.
And they're so popular, and you see them on Instagram so many times. Like, you see it all over the place, baby lights. And the thing with baby lights too is it takes way more time to do baby lights. You have to put in 3 times as many foils because you're doing so little pieces of hair that you need to do so many more of them to see them.
Well, and some people who get their highlight, I've seen some people start to say, like, they have what's the alopecia?
Oh, alopecia areata?
They think they have it because they keep lightening their hair with baby lights, and because it's like falling out, they think they have, but it's like, no, you just need to stop baby lighting your hair.
Baby lights, extensions, all those, those types of services, you have to be very careful. You make sure that if you're going to get those things done, you make sure your stylist is knowledgeable and talented in that field.
And that's not to say if you have alopecia and you're listening to this podcast, like it's directly from that, but I'm just saying, we've seen some people who don't have, who we know, who have posted that they now have alopecia, but that's not something that just comes.
Now, alopecia is baldness, which you have. You have alopecia.
I have alopecia. Everybody.
You're baldness. Although alopecia is no hair on the body at all. Alopecia areata is what they're talking about when they have like losing patches of hair.
Oh, gotcha.
Alopecia areata is, people are losing little sections of hair a lot of times from extensions. But yeah, if you get breakage from baby lights, if you get breakage from highlights, it's you feel like you're losing your hair.
But it's not the disease, but you're losing your hair. So if you spent some time, if you look at a last podcast, we talked about how hair grows, so you can check that one out. Sugar Bear Hair and Friends episode.
That's a good one.
It really just, you got to be able to discern between both and just take care of your hair that way instead of over highlighting your hair. That wasn't on our pre-show talk, but it came to me just now.
The thing with highlights and baby lights both, your stylist, you don't want your stylist to be overlapping. If they're putting lightener on all your old highlights and all your old baby lights, you are going to have all these weak spots in your hair. With all those weak spots in your hair, you're going to risk damage, you're going to risk breakage. And we see a lot of it. They have a lot of things now, all these bond building things and protectors that you can add to bleach or lightener. The thing is, it's making people think that they're invincible and they can do anything. And while they're amazing and they're letting us push things really far, you still can't keep overlapping. Your hair, it's bad.
Yeah, there's a line that you can't cross.
There's a line you can. Yes, there's a line you can't cross.
On to the next one, which is the most buzzword and popular, which is Foilyage, Ombre, Balayage. So let's talk about what those are.
All right, let's address first Ombre and Balayage. Okay, people get super confused as to what is the difference. Now, basically, Ombre is the finished look. Ombre means fading. So you're fading from one color into another color. That's all it is. Ombre is the look. The method of getting the look is done by a balayage or a hair painting or a foilyage or whatever the stylist chooses to achieve the look that you want. So don't get confused with ombre. I mean, we put our service down as ombre / balayage because everybody still thinks it's called ombre, which is fine. It's the look that you're trying to create. But this look, a balayage, technically is painting the hair freehand. The French balayage is just take your lightener, put it on a piece of hair, paint the piece of hair, leave it there in the air to dry and process, and you get what you get. The thing with balayage is that you can only lift as high as the lightener will lift before it dries. And so a lot of people don't get light enough. You know, they bring in these bright blonde pictures and they ask for balayage, but you can't get it that light unless you do 3 or 4 or 5 services on top of each other.
Yes.
So what we do here, we do American balayage, or commonly referred to as foilyage, where you actually create the balayage technique by hand painting the hair, but then you actually put it in a foil, because now that's going to lift a lot lighter because you're encapsulating that hair. It stays wet longer, it processes longer, and you can get a lot blonder. So that balayage is just the technique to create an ombre look. So also balayage is because when you're trying to create an ombre, it's fading from dark using into light, so it's usually not taken to the scalp, or some pieces aren't taken to the scalp. It's a very freehand technique.
Yeah. No, and it's a lot lower maintenance.
It is lower maintenance because you don't have the color right at the scalp like a highlight. You know, highlight we usually get as close to the scalp as we can possibly get, so the client's hair looks blonde.
And then they've got to touch that up in 6 weeks or so.
Yeah. Depending on how quick your hair grows, a touch up on a highlight is usually 6 to 12 weeks. Yeah. An ombre balayage ombre look. A lot of times we'll have clients go 6 to 12 months. It's a lot of work when you do it, but it's a really low maintenance look to keep because you don't have to do it very often.
Right, and that's going to lead us kind of into this next part. So, why does it take so long? And we could talk about like the mega blondes, at the same time. But why do these services, especially mainly the foilyage ombre balayage, why do they take so long? And what should or does it entail to be able to achieve that look? Okay,
so let's say you come in, and first time you're going to get this service done. This applies mostly to a first time.
Okay.
And what we're going to do, because we don't know your hair, we don't know what's in your hair, we're not familiar with it. The first thing that we're going to do is a clarifier. All right. I can't even express the importance of clarifying your hair to get all the stuff out of your hair, medication, hard water. Just whatever, just getting that out of the hair makes a huge difference in the final result of your balayage. But you have to be prepared for a clarifier. You have to realize that putting in the foils takes, depending on how much hair you have, it can take 2 to 3 hours to just put the foils in your hair.
Yeah, and that's really depending on if we're going mega. So when we say mega blonde, like that's a ton of blonde. That's all over blonde.
Absolutely.
And even with those partial ombres, it takes 45 minutes to an hour just to get those two foils.
Yeah. When you bring in your pictures, which we love pictures. When you're talking an ombre balayage, please bring in pictures, because we need to know what you're thinking, because there's so many varieties of this.
Yep.
But if you bring in a picture and the entire bottom of that hair is all blonde, then we have to put a foil on every single solitary piece of your hair.
Yep.
Every piece. And we consider those mega colors. They just take hours. They take usually 5 to 8 hours to do like a mega color, depending on how thick your hair is.
Yep. Yeah.
And people aren't really coming in prepared for that time.
Even one of our stylists.
You know what? Yeah, we had a stylist the other day, and she went from a red to a blonde.
Charlie, who is the host, my co-host on the Box Color podcast episode, if you want to check that out.
Yeah, that was an excellent episode. But I took her blonde not too long ago, and man, oh man, was she struggling to sit in that chair. She was going stir crazy. She was just out of her mind with just antsiness, because Charlie's not a calm person. If you know Charlie, she's busy. So we have so many clients who come in and they think it's going to be 2 hours.
They're ready for the Instagram before and after, and that's how fast it is.
Yeah,
no.
I mean, so we do the clarifier. We put a bazillion foils in your hair. We have to back comb a lot of the times to create some of that blending, and then processing, because it took 3 hours to put them in your hair. They're not all going to be done at the same time. So we're taking things out and rinsing that off, and then processing some more, and then taking them out and rinsing those off, and processing some more, and taking new ones out.
And making sure that you're getting to the shade that you want before you put a toner on. So I mean, you got to keep checking those fold. So it's not even like you're sitting for like your normal touch-up for 25, 30, 45 minutes, and then it's
No.
all done.
Oh,
Like,
no.
you've got to keep checking those because some people's hair lighten quicker than others, right? And
Oh yeah, processing time can take anywhere from a half an hour to 2 hours, depending
Yeah.
on what you're dealing with. I'm talking like we're talking like these things can be crazy. Now, I mean, if you don't want a solid look on the ends, you're cutting your time in half, easy.
right, yeah, and that's why I was saying when you want
Uh-huh.
to touch up your ombre, because a lot of our clients come in and they'll get like a partial, like they'll get like a touch-up ombre, which is not as much. It's not as much, but it's only like half the time. Now they come in after like 6 months and do the foils again, but they move those up. But it only takes, like I said before, 45 minutes, maybe an hour to put them in. The processing time isn't quite.
You're still looking at 3 hours though on a partial ombre.
Exactly. So I mean, even just thinking about it like that. Now, so when somebody's using a toner, and this is something that I've just recently come across now, and this is just, why is a toner used
Okay.
in the first place? Because some clients think because a toner's used, that means you didn't do what you were supposed to do, but that's not true.
No, that's not true. In fact, when you see these white blonde balayage ombre looks on Instagram, I guarantee you that's a toner, because if you lift somebody's hair to that white color, you break their hair off.
Yeah.
All right, you can't do it. You have killed everything, and their hair is so damaged and is going to fall off. So you bring it up to a pale yellow, and then you put on the tone of you neutralize that yellow with the violet to create that platinum effect.
Yes.
And so if you don't, I mean, if you just don't do a toner, you're going to have a warm result. It's going to be a golden blonde, because you can't get a white blonde without a toner.
Yeah.
Now, sometimes we want a golden effect, but,
Right.
but a lot of times that raw, lightened look isn't the look that you want. We're trying to get you to a level that's light enough to support the tone that you want.
Yeah, and it just sounds like the toner is to help to get that, because you can't always account for every single hair lifting exactly the same every single time. So
No,
that's
it's
why,
true.
So I mean that's why, and just for those clients who may not understand why a toner is used, that's why in layman's terms I would put it as like, it's just the help to get the look that you want, because you can't account for every hair. It's just impossible.
No, and I know some stylists that don't like to use toners, but I would guarantee you that 80% of the stylists out there use a toner,
Yeah.
because it just makes it it's a prettier finished result.
For sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, a toner, I was talking about how long the ombres take, and the toners, and putting the Olaplexes and the blow dry so we can see the finished results, and everybody always wants their hair curled when they're done. I mean, your appointment is going to be a long time.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And just to piggyback off of that, blonding. So we've had people who have come in who have received a blonding service, or from other salons where they left, and the hair, the tone, the color wasn't what they wanted exactly, but they had left wet. And I saw something on Instagram not too long ago where it said, wet hair is a lie, dry hair is the truth. And so let's elaborate on that so people can understand.
I like that. No, it is true. When your hair is wet, it looks completely different than when it's dry. And it's super funny, because sometimes we'll lighten somebody's hair, like, do this 8-hour ombre blonde color. We put them in the chair, and they're like, it's dark. Well, give us a second, let us dry the hair, because everything looks dark wet.
Yeah.
So
if you're somebody who wants to always leave wet and you're blonde,
I don't recommend it.
Yeah, don't recommend.
I don't recommend it.
The blow dry should be coming in with the service. So stylists, if you're trying to add it on at the end, just roll that price into your service, because it should come with a blow dry, because more often than not, even though a stylist can see where the hair is going, it's so much better to know where it's at when it's dry.
And plus, I mean, if the tone is a little off, we can just quickly run back and add more tone.
Yep.
That's a quick, easy fix.
Yep.
Like, that's the easiest fix of all.
Yeah.
All of our lightening services that we do at our salon, the blow dry is just included. Like,
Yeah.
And when we're dealing with these big, huge mega projects, we literally just charge by time.
Yeah.
Like, we don't even break things down anymore. It's just too nitpicky. We just go off time.
Yeah, no, and a lot of people have given good feedback on it, because we've had people come in from other salons who were nickel and dimed on the back end. They weren't told. They were told how much an ombre was, quote unquote,
Yeah,
And then,
yeah. But not
they're like, well,
not
we
the
did all these
Olaplex,
other
yeah.
things, and this is all that we added on at the very end, and the person gets a sticker shock, which also was another episode of our podcast.
But it's true because most salons do it that way. They write down the ombre, so just putting the foils in, and then the toner's not included. The Olaplex is not included. The blow dry is not included. You know, so
and that to me, like if I were a client, I don't like that. That's too much back end pricing and too much insecurity and misunderstanding. Which we'll talk about consultations in a little bit, which we've expanded on, and we'll just touch on it briefly. But hair painting, the last one.
Hair painting is another method that we see a lot. Hair painting is probably the most subtle of all the techniques out there right now.
Yeah.
Hair painting is very similar to balayage because you are freehand painting the hair. But on balayage, you take much smaller pieces, more like a highlight, where hair painting, you take kind of just really big sections of the hair.
Yeah.
It's very subtle, sun-kissed look.
It doesn't lighten as much, like you were saying before with the balayage.
Yeah, it doesn't lighten as much. You can get a lighter look. It's gentle because you're not lifting it super light, so you can overlap hair painting a few times.
Yeah, you're really looking for the just sun-kissed, very, very subtle look.
Yeah, and you can get brighter by doing more surfaces, but you're having to do 2 or 3 or 4 layered on top of each other to get the lightness you want.
Yeah. So risks. Going blonde. What we do have to talk about that because and this is not like a lot of the phrases that we've said and a lot of the things like it's not meant to scare people from this, but but we've got to understand once we're putting the lightener in, we are stripping the hair of its integrity basically. So we need to understand those risks so that we can better care for it so you can have the color that you want, feel beautiful, have what you want. So what are those risks? Okay,
so usually when lightening your hair, the product we're using is one of the most aggressive color products out there. You know, when we're just coloring your hair red or brown, it's much less aggressive.
Yes.
But when we're lightening and we're trying to take you know, from dark brown to a bright blonde, I mean, we are having to use something really strong.
Well, geez, and even if you're going like 3 levels lighter, like you've got to use a good.
Yeah. I mean, it unless you want to have orange hair.
Right.
But so we have touched on this before in other podcasts and other videos, but my thing with risk, when we have a client who comes in and let's say your hair is long, let's say your hair is down to your waist, so you've got 20-inch hair. All right, if you have 20-inch hair, we know that hair grows about 6 inches a year, so you've got hair that has been on your head for 3 years at least.
Yep.
All right, and what people don't realize is that everything they've done to the hair for the past 3 years, every time they've lightened it and then darkened it and then lightened it and then darkened it, it's still in the hair. And so that has to be addressed. You know, when your stylist asks you what you have put in your hair, like what's been done, it doesn't work to your benefit to not tell the truth.
Yeah.
That usually ends up in really damaged hair. But we do need to know what's in there. We need to know what's been on your hair because if you've already lightened your hair and then covered it up and then lightened it again and then covered it up so it's not, we can't see it, but it's still there and we go and lighten it again, you're going to have such a problem. It's going to be so damaged. There's no integrity left. The hair's going to be so angry.
And that's assuming that you went to a professional stylist and darkened it. If you didn't go, if you went to box color, you've opened up a whole other works.
We're not even going there. We're not even going. That's another podcast altogether, which you've already done actually.
Yes, we did.
So we have to make sure that your hair can handle what we're going to do to it. Sometimes it can't. Sometimes when you come in for a consultation and we look at your hair and we talk to your hair and we find out your history and we feel your hair and we do that test strand, you can't have what you want. Yep. And we're telling you that out of love. You know, that's because we love you and we love your hair and we don't want you to hate us and we don't want you to hate your hair and we want the hair to stay on your head.
Yeah.
So sometimes it can't happen. Sometimes you can't have bright white blonde. We had a client the other day who came in and she's colored her hair. We've colored her hair on and off for years. She's a great client and she wanted to come in and get the platinum gray ends.
Oh.
But because she has done highlights and then red and then dark and then highlights, it couldn't be done. And we had to tell her, hey, you know, we'll give you the best we can. We'll lighten it as much as we can, but we can't push this. We can't make you white and then turn it gray.
Yeah, because think of the other alternate of that. If you're thinking of this and you're like, well, why not? Think of the alternate. If they push it, if they just say, all right, we're going to do whatever you want, and they fry your hair off, you know, your hair starts falling out, you're not going to be happy. obviously.
You're gonna hate. You're gonna think it's our fault.
Yeah, which so that's why it's important to listen to the stylist. And like you said, it's out of love. It's out of education. And it's a bummer, because we want what we want.
We do.
Right?
We do.
So and that goes for me. That goes for you. That goes for everybody. We want what we want, but we need to be open to the fact that if we don't get what we want, then we got to have a backup. And that's why sometimes when I talk to people on the phone, and I know Colton, our front desk person, has talked to people about this. It's good to have a couple different styles. A couple different options. Because if you come in and you're like, oh man, I can't get my most favorite one, but this one I really like too. Hey, that one's actually more achievable. We could do this one. You know,
interesting what you just brought up. In this day and age, we do have the option of doing some reparative work. Now, if you come in and in the consultation you find out that you can't have what you want, but if we say, hey, it could be an option 6 months from now if you do these things to your hair at home, it does open up the possibility of potentially getting your look down the road.
Yeah, so then it's not you can't have it, it's just you have to wait.
Yeah. Yeah, and sometimes it's better to wait and take the care and take care of your hair than to do your backup, which then now there's another color service that's going to impede and not let us do the color we eventually want to do. So, there is always that option, but you got to do the work. You got to clean up the ends, you got to use the Olaplex, you got to use the reparative masks. You have to do it.
Just reiterate honesty about what you use, and that even goes to what kind of shampoo and conditioner you're using. Absolutely. And anything else that's going in, because like we talked about professional products, they're just different than the store-bought ones that are full of wax. So once we're trying to color and lighten over that wax buildup from those store-bought shampoos and conditioners, that causes more issues than people think.
We have a lot of issues with the waxy things. We have a lot of we just had a client just yesterday. The stylist was doing her hair, and all of a sudden her hair was so much softer than it had ever been ever. Well, she started using a product that had a wax to it. So, yeah, it felt amazing.
Yeah.
But it was a wax buildup. And once that wax gets stripped off, it's just as damaged as it was before.
Yeah. And if you're thinking, well, then I got the soft and it's wax, so there's just a bunch of wax in your hair, and it's going to cause issue with colors, and after a while, it's going to make your hair feel weird. Yeah,
it's going to continue to build up, and you're going to have gross filling hair. We're going to do a clarifier, and you're going to be back to stage 1.
Yeah, just think, have you ever washed your hands with, wax on your hands? It doesn't come off super easy, so it's not going to get out of those get out of your hair. Okay, so we hear so many people who want to go blonde in some form or fashion, but are concerned with the upkeep. Why is it such a high level of upkeep needed with blonding services? Now, we've alluded to it. I want to specifically kind of zero in on what's needed to take care of your hair.
Okay, so when we do lighten your hair, so let's say you've had any of the blonding services done, whether it's highlights, ombre, baby lights possibly, we have lightened your hair. We've used an aggressive product to remove the color from your hair, all right? Because we've done this, we've done some damage to your hair. There's no way to do this without any damage at all. Now, we try to keep it as minimum as possible. We in our past podcast episode, we've talked about how hair is dead. And there's no blood vessels or anything that can bring nutrients down to your hair. So once you've damaged your hair, it's a dead fiber. It can't fix itself. It can't regenerate itself.
Right.
The only thing that we can do now is use the Olaplex. And Olaplex is a bond builder. So, when we put the lightener in your hair, the colors in your hair, we destroy some of the bonds that are in your hair that make it strong. And Olaplex will basically synthetically, reattach some of those bonds, making your hair a stronger fiber.
Yes.
All right. And so that's something that we highly recommend. If we've done something aggressive to your hair to get a dramatic look, we're going to be sending you home with Olaplex number 3. It's a take-home treatment that you need to be doing, once a week or once every other week or whatever it need be.
Yeah.
We have some amazing products. Bumble & Bumble has a product called While You Sleep. It's an amazing hair mask. Yeah. I mean, it adds so much moisture to your hair because lightening your hair dries it out.
Well, even that Bumble & Bumble mending shampoo and conditioner is really a game changer for light hair that's really, really damaged.
Yeah, there's some really good products out there for hair that's been compromised.
I mean, remember that client, she was always like an all-over bleach, and she changed to the mending for a while just to repair her hair, and her hair was holding the lightener a lot lot better. Like, I mean,
Oh,
just
yeah, yeah.
there's ways to do it, but you've got to be open to that from your hairstylist and say this is what's going to care for
it's
it.
interesting as we're talking about products, and this is, we're kind of going off on a tangent here, but I had a client come in the other day, and it was, she wasn't bleached at all. She lightened. She was just regular, and she's been doing all these volumizing products, trying to get all this volume. Well, her hair was curly, and curly hair has a tendency to be dehydrated. So all we did, we shampooed her with the curl shampoo. We used the curl primer in her hair, and as I'm blow drying her hair, she goes, "Oh my gosh, my hair has never looked this good in my life."
Yeah, no.
And all it was we added moisture into her hair.
Yeah.
She needed it desperately.
Yeah.
And it was such a simple fix. She's like, she bought everything. She was like, because this is like Christmas, and she was
Yes.
just drinking it up. But I mean, just using the correct products for the way your hair is now, because like I said, we do compromise your hair a little bit. I mean, we can't achieve some of these looks without some compromising.
Yeah.
Now, some things are more extreme than others.
Right.
Just to highlight, that's not bad. I mean,
Yeah.
we put the lightener on one time, and we never overlap, and it's just that one time. So yeah, use something that's good and moisturizing. We're good.
Well, and it's not even just from the service that's done. A lot of people
Come in with
flat
it.
iron their hair, and they don't flat iron it correctly, so they burn their hair at home, or they curl it. They keep it on the hair too long.
Yes.
And for at least for us in Arizona, it's dry outside. It's always hot. If you live someplace where there's a lot of sun, there's more damage coming out. So it's not just because we have changed the integrity of your hair. It's also what elements are outside
well,
that are
it's true. I
affecting
mean, we create a canvas that is now more susceptible to damage.
Yeah.
And so you have to be aware of that, so you have to take the precautions. So because we have opened up your cuticle and we have done some aggressive techniques to it, you have to be a little bit more careful. You have to use sunscreen products that have sunscreen, products that have heat protectors. You have to come in. You have to get trims. I can't even go there. Like we have people who come in and they get this, this
Beautiful.
$500 service. It takes 8 hours to do. And then they never trim it, and they come back a year later, and their ends are just destroyed because they've done nothing to it. They've not moisturized it. They've not used good products on it. They've been swimming. They've been curling. They've been blow drying.
Well, and your natural hair is growing, and since that hair's already there's been integrity.
Yes, Paulson.
He's
talking
already,
with his hands. I see his hands moving.
Yeah, that's really good for a podcast when people start using the hand motions. But your hair has already been compromised, so it's already split. So like at that point, if you're not trimming it, taking care of it, then you have to do that. It's a pain, but you have to.
Lightening your hair does weaken your hair, and so you've got to keep it strong. You've got to clean up those ends. You know what happens with a split end, and this is kind of funny because people who are trying to grow their hair out, they think I can't cut my hair. I can't cut my hair because I'm trying to grow it. But if you have split ends, what's going to happen is that split's going to travel. It's going to travel up your hair.
It doesn't travel down either.
No, it travels up. It travels up, and it eventually, one of the pieces breaks off. Where that piece breaks off, you now have created a really weak spot in your hair. That will break.
Yeah.
I guarantee you that piece is going to break.
No, if you're trying to grow your hair, you got to get regular haircuts.
You need to cut it before the split travels up your hair.
Yep. All right, so and you should be coming in for either a keratin triplex treatment or an Olaplex treatment, depending on what you're looking for. Olaplex is more of a long-term building healthy part. Keratin triplex is more of like an instant gratification.
It
feels
protects.
really nice, and
it
it does
protects your hair.
Yeah. Great things to have, but you should come in for if you're just coming in for a blonding service, and then you're leaving and you're never dealing with it, and especially if you're not going to take professional products home to care for your hair, you should come into the salon every so often to get that hair taken care of.
It's kind of funny because from our perspective, here we do is service. You're here with us for 6-7 hours, and you walk out of here spending $400, $500, $600, and then you balk at spending an extra $6 on shampoo. You're gonna save $6 by going to the grocery store and buying the cheap stuff that's gonna put the wax on your hair. It's like, wait a minute, that doesn't make sense to me.
Right.
Like where's the what's the logic? So it is interesting. It's like, why not spend an extra $10-15 and protect your investment, because it is an investment.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And if you want, so this is going to segue into. People are noticing that their hair may be extra dry, broken, cotton candy-ish, and it's not something that we have really dealt with because we do everything that we can at Hair-Do to protect their hair. But one thing we can't take into account for, which we already alluded to, is how you care for your hair when you're at home. So it might not be your stylist's fault that your hair is going through this. But on the other side is people know when your hair is cotton candy. I remember seeing a client recently who stopped coming to Hair-Do, and she had beautiful hair. And I remember sitting in, like, seeing her and talking to her, and she came in, and I was like, oh, it's looks all cotton
she had beautiful
candy-ish.
hair when she came here, and then she wasn't coming here, and then you saw her, and it was cotton candy.
Yes. Like, it was sad, because I'm like, you know, her color wasn't as good, the dimension wasn't as well, and I'm not a hairstylist. Like, I can't always tell a fantastic cut or a fantastic color, but I can tell when a hair when it looks not good and not cared for, and it made me sad. It made me more sad than anything. I just wanted to, like, grab her and help her. Like, it's just, here, put this on your hair.
Yeah.
Put this and do this. But so what if people are experiencing this? What should people be doing, or how should they talk to their stylist about this?
Well, first off, if your hair is breaking off and you're seeing a professional stylist, perhaps it's time to see a new stylist, if that's the case.
Yeah.
But I mean, the things that you can do is to use the professional products like we talked about.
Yep.
Is to take home the
which your
Olaplex
stylist
treatment.
should be suggesting.
Yes.
You know, your stylist should be suggesting how to care for your hair, and then it's your choice whether to do it or not. Sorry, I wanted.
Well, and you know, you said cotton candy, and then that kind of we've all dealt with cotton candy. We have clients who come in who don't tell the truth. And we ask them, was your hair blonde in the past 2 years? They're like, no, my hair was never blonde, and it's been, 4 years or whatever. And we put the color on their hair, and
the truth comes out.
Lo and behold, we take those foils out, and there's some really angry hair.
And the truth shall set you free.
So we have dealt with that before, and it's like, oh my gosh. Oh, and then like, oh yeah, maybe, well, I guess maybe it was only a year and a half that it was blonde. And it's like, okay, well, see this whole inch and a half on the bottom of your hair, that's where your old blonde was. And now we're going to be cutting 2 inches off your hair to make your hair happy. And luckily we can cut hair and take off some of that damage. But yes, cotton candy is a real thing. When cotton candy happens when you have lightened the hair beyond its ability to lighten.
Yes.
And you destroy every bond, you break every bond in that hair, and it literally feels like cotton candy. If you've had this hair, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
it's like little noodles, and it's horrifying.
And it's weird because it's like, you have to know. Like, if you're doing your hair, you have to know. You have to be able to see the difference, because somebody who's not trained like me can see it. Like, that's when you know, like, it's time to do something to care for your hair, because at some point your hair is going to start either falling out, but you're not going to feel happy. You're not going to feel confident when you're walking out with a mop on your head, a stringy mop.
No, and cotton candy is unrepairable. I mean, I don't care how much Olaplex you put on that. You might be able to get it to where you can comb it.
Yeah.
But I mean, you're just going to be changing your haircut is what's going to happen.
Yes.
No, but I mean, blonding is amazing. Now. In this industry, as a hairstylist, I've been doing hair for like 30 years, so I've seen so many different looks come in. They come and they go, and I was just thinking about this the other day. It's like, if your stylist is not keeping up on their education, that's probably not a stylist you want to go to, because this is not an industry that stays the same. If I only did haircuts that I did when I first graduated from cosmetology school, I probably have like one client.
Yeah.
I mean, it just, the looks just keep changing, and everything changes, and you have to keep up. You have to know how to do it.
It's not even the looks. All the professional color companies.
Oh,
and all
absolutely.
They're changing.
It's evolving. It's changing.
How the chemistry is done, so then the stylists have to do, because they're little chemists back there. We've talked about it before, but you want to do something to your hair, you need somebody who is educated and not just. They watch something and they try it.
No,
like, you want somebody who's.
I have spent thousands and thousands of dollars on outside education to keep up in this industry.
Yeah.
And I can't imagine not doing that. I can't imagine where I'd be as a hairstylist if I didn't do that. Like, it just boggles my mind when stylists don't go future education to keep up on the new looks with these ombres and balayages and hair painting. You have to know how to do them.
Yes. Yep.
You have to know how to do it, and you have to know how to do it correctly.
No, absolutely. So and that goes back to research your stylist, look at their Instagram. You need to be able to know what you're going into. You should not be calling or just going off of only word of mouth. You need to say, oh, hey, I'll take a look at that person, and go research and look and make sure that they are doing the work that you feel that they are going to do on your hair and take care of you. And it's not just the skill right there. It's how they're going to teach you how to care for your hair.
Yeah.
Because it's just weird how people don't realize, like we've had so many people, who realized that they weren't ironing their hair correctly, or that they were taking too long to do it. And they'd be like, wow, it's just totally transformed how my hair is not, I'm not frying my hair. So it's just super important. And this episode really is for understanding and just so that everybody really gets a good sense of what happens and what to expect when they're going in with their stylist. Stylists, you should be upfront. You should consult, give them the right expectations before you get their color, and whether it's a consultation a week before, a month before, or right before, needs to be clear. All of these services, they spend a long time, so it's not going to be cheap. It's not going to be cheap.
You ultimately are paying for your stylist expertise and for their time.
Yeah, well, and even think about the ombres. If your ombre is low maintenance, you don't have to come in very much, and that means it's a longer service. So you're really paying for the idea of not having to do your hair for 6 months.
Sometimes I'll even take a calculator out and take their total bill and divide it by 8. It's like, okay, basically you're spending this much per month. Okay,
yes.
Let's just look at it realistically, because it's an expense.
Yeah,
when it's done correctly, and the time and the skill and everything. When it all works out perfectly, it's beautiful.
It is, but nothing is worse. We've had people come in who have been to people who are not educated, who were not doing well, and we've had to do a lot of damage. And it's worse when you have to do that than just getting it done right the first time.
I know we're trying to wrap up, but I just had a thought as you were talking about this. And this is like me. In the older days, I used to have to walk to school in the snow. This is one of my stories here. Okay, so it used to be in this industry that. Before Instagram, before Facebook, before all the social media, all the clients, you would choose your hairstylist by recommendations. Somebody else went there and highly recommended a stylist. Nowadays, so many people look at Instagram pictures, and that's how they choose their stylist. I just want to throw it out there that Instagram, you can do a lot of tricks with pictures.
Oh, that's true.
To make them look amazing. All right, you can curl a bad haircut, and it looks like an amazing haircut.
Yep.
You can filter a picture. You can make anything look like a different color. You can take the brass out of color and make it look white with a filter.
Yep.
So I can't even explain how important it is to really know what you're getting yourself into.
Right, and that's why, and it's good that you bring that up, because you should be going to the company's website. You should be going to the style. If the stylist has their own website, you should be going to Facebook. You should be going to and really to see the truth serum in their in somebody's color. Like if a stylist posts a picture and tags that person, go to that person's Instagram and if
reviews.
You can see their hair,
read their reviews.
Yep.
Read reviews. I just see it all the time, and because people don't do. I mean, recommendations were pretty strong. Like 3 people who go to the same hairstylist. They all love that hairstylist, so you go to that hairstylist.
Yes.
All right, but nowadays people they hairstylists hop via pictures.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, I like this picture, I'm going to go to that hairstylist. Oh, that hairstylist was horrible. Oh, I like this picture, I'm going to go to this hairstylist. You have to do more research.
And like we've talked about in the past, it takes a couple times, especially for a cut and a color, to really get to know. So give your stylist a shot. If you're going to put in the time to research and go spend the money, do as much research as you can, and make sure that you are going to be taken care of, and that you don't need to hop around. Try to stick with the stylist for a little while.
I've likened that, and you did a podcast on this, but kind of like a first date. We talk about. It used to be when it was all on referrals that, clients would give you, 1, 2, 3 times to do their hair to decide if it was going to work out. Because the first time you do someone's hair, you don't know them. You don't know anything about
how their hair
them.
grows. You don't know
their personality, their style, how they like it. We're not going to hit a home run the first time we meet you. It's going to take a couple of dates.
It's rare. It's rare to do that.
Yes. but it's going to take a couple of times to really nail it and get it the way you want it to be.
She's
so
touching her hand right now.
As long as it's a decent first appointment and nothing was messed up and
Yeah.
you were happy, come again.
Yeah.
All right, because it's just going to get better as we get to know you and we get to know your hair.
Yes. All right. So you can find episodes of the podcast. You can go to our website, www.hairdosalon.net. Our salon website is www.hair-dosalon.com. On Instagram and Twitter, we are hair_do_salon. You can find us on Facebook as well. And our the podcast email is hairdouncut@gmail.com. If you have questions, if you have topics that you'd like clarified, we'd love to hear from you.
Can they find all that information on the website?
Yeah, all of that's up there.
Oh, it's all on our website.
Yeah, everything's up on the
hair-dosalon.com.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, or hairdosalon.net.
Yes.
They're on both. They're on both
We have
locations.
two. We have an education website and a regular website.
Yeah, well, and we post our blogs and podcasts on the blog site, on the .net site. So thank you so much for listening to us. We hope you are getting some value from this, and have a great hair day.